Senior financial exploitation is not new to any of us. As the prosecutor in Kansas City, I saw firsthand both horrific and heartbreaking instances of elder abuse, physical, emotional, and yes, financial. Roughly 1 in 5 seniors will be a target of some form of financial exploitation to the tune of billions of dollars of losses each year. This hearing will focus on those cases with an additional conflicting factor. When the perpetrator is a family member, a trusted caretaker, or a close friend or advisor. The numbers here don't really tell the story, and thankfully we have several witnesses who can share firsthand accounts of some of the truly horrible instances of this type of abuse. Perpetrators are constantly developing new ways to gain access to our seniors' life savings and have focused upon a generation that typically has been more trusting and less able or willing to self-report. When the victim is a family member, however, these become some of the most complex cases around. Often a family member is legally appointed as the guardian of assets. A victim of those around them may suspect what is happening, but feel even more powerless or ashamed to report. Often a victim will struggle with filing criminal charges against a child or other family member. Prosecution involves not only criminal action, but civil action to potentially regain assets. Today, I want to reiterate that we cannot shy away from holding these perpetrators accountable for their actions. The fraud and abuse perpetrated on our seniors is absolutely unconscionable. It is really a fairly recent phenomenon that we have started discussing these types of cases in the criminal arena because for too long they were dismissed as family matters. We must address this cooperation. There are those who say this is a state issue. Yes, it is, but it is bigger than just a state issue. There is much that the federal government can do better to assist state and local prosecution of these cases. GAO found in its 2012 review of this issue that 7 different federal agencies were working to solve these problems that were consistent with their own mission, but not necessarily supportive of one another or the overall goal. Since that time, these agencies have in fact begun to work together, and I want to highlight the work of one of them with material on hand today, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that is providing real guidance for family members and caregivers on how to responsibly take care of someone else's finances. But there is still so much more that we could be doing and are not. The reality is we don't even have national data on the scope of the problem. We don't know how many cases are reported to Adult Protection Services, nor do we know how many elder abuse cases are criminally prosecuted or how many civil cases have been filed in this area. My home state of Missouri passed a law in 2012 strengthening the definition of financial exploitation of seniors. I intend to do everything I can to support that effort. I think it's important for us to understand the barriers around it's not big enough. And this is the constant refrain that families hear from law enforcement. There's not a gun, there's not blood on the street, it is, there's not pressure from the sergeant or the head of detectives to close the cases because this is not a statistic that's generally tracked. So there is very little to get the law enforcement community engaged other than a prosecutor who feels pressure from either their own compass or from some outward source. So what would be the thing that we could do that would most light a fire under local law enforcement and state DAs?
Senator, I think that's an excellent question because I think that basically many of these cases stop when that message is heard in the community that prosecutors are not going to prosecute the case. APS doesn't bother referring to law enforcement doesn't bother investigating, and the public doesn't bother reporting. So having a prosecutor who is stepping up and saying, we will take on this issue is crucial to its being addressed properly. The other thing is, I think that more prosecutors would take this on if they had training. And so going back to my point about the need for infrastructure, I do think prosecutors would care and would be willing to take on these cases if they understood how to prove them. But there's huge knowledge issues here. We don't know how to deal with capacity issues, which are so common in these cases. We don't know how to handle the analysis of the financial documents, which are also crucial to prosecuting these cases. We don't have doctors to talk to. We are really lacking the tools that we need to start responding properly.
If a year ago I had been approached in the hallway by one of those pesky people with a microphone, if I were asked if the Democrats were to lose control of the Senate and you were to take over as a ranking member of the very first committee you could ever serve on as a ranking member, who would you pick for your chairman? I would have said without hesitation, my friend, my mentor, and my role model, Susan Collins. She has been an example to me from the day that I arrived of courage and independence when it is called upon, and of working across the aisle. I watched her with Senator Lieberman in the Homeland Security Committee when she was the ranking member, show determination and toughness when she needed to, but always willing to listen and cooperate when it was essential. So I am very proud to serve under Chairman Collins, and I think we will have a terrific and productive committee looking at a very important issue in our country.